When we asked 16 young women of color from all over the US in their senior years of high school what their thoughts and feelings on making an impact on the world were, this is what some of them told us. Notice as I read these quotes the metaphor of journey that they evoke. My track is very curvy and bumpy, but that doesn't really scare me because I know I'm going to make it somehow. I feel like a shooting star that just comes out of nowhere and just shines. I'll come out of nowhere and accomplish my goals. People just underestimate me because they don't see my motivation. But we were more interested in understanding their experience and perceptions beyond what is just revealed in plain conversation, which is why we use the emet, a patented metaphor elicitation technique that's been used all over the world to reveal the deeper, unconscious meanings behind the metaphorical images we ask them to bring in to represent those thoughts and feelings. These are some of their images. At surface level, these girls described images that represented their ambition to change their communities and the world. They saw themselves as the heroes of their own narratives, and they were confident in their ability to succeed. However, when we dug deeper into the imagery, we saw a strange and rather eerie trend. Pretty stark contrast, right? So what exactly is going on here? We've all heard that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And while that saying is cliche, research in cognitive psychology suggests that these young women chose their images based on implicit attitudes, values, and beliefs. That is, unconscious and relatively automatic features of thought. Let's take a closer look at some of these images. What do we see? She rarely brings in images of her full body, and instead, her images have only disembodied hands and feet. She avoids bringing in images that show her facial expressions, instead choosing to turn her back to us as the viewer, or by hiding behind silhouettes and shadowy figures. She brings in images that represent isolated spaces, and sometimes she represents herself as isolated, even in crowded places. So what does all of this mean? When we look at these images, we see a girl who feels isolated from herself and detached from both herself and the environment. And although we see journeys of transition in her images, what's beyond the horizon is unclear. Although these girls are confident in their ability to make an impact on the world, their future is uncertain. They can't foresee what might come after for them, and that can be really scary. These images provide rich metaphors for the worlds that these girls experience, and they provide clues that may not have been otherwise revealed in plain conversation. And that brings us to the bigger question. What exactly could be standing in their way? Amongst a plethora of obstacles these girls face is one of the biggest problems in our society, a lack of media representation and role models for these girls. Being able to identify role models in media and in reality helps these girls fulfill the futures that they dream of. However, positions of leadership, visible leadership, are predominantly occupied by white men and some white women, while minority women remain largely underrepresented. In 2016, for example, women made up about 20% of board seats in the Fortune 500, while minority women made up less than 4%. In Congress, women made up about 19% of the elected body, while minority women made up less than 6%. And although women now make up about 30% of the science and engineering workforce, women of color make up less than 10% of employed scientists and engineers. And if you're wondering why all of these statistics I'm throwing at you seem kind of random and unrelated, it's because, for the most part, these statistics are meant to cover the experience of women in general, which doesn't tell us the full story, because a majority of these women leaders are white. When it comes to minority women, the numbers are much, much lower. Given all of this, it's probably not surprising that the same norms are reflected in fiction. For example, when you think of the word hero, what do you imagine? Superman is probably one of the first. Then there's Batman and Robin, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Captain America, and maybe even Harry Potter. We do sometimes see women in these roles. For example, Superwoman, Hermione Granger, Black Widow, Katniss Everdeen, and Princess Leia. But what's wrong with these pictures? There are no minority women, and they're so seldom found in the role of hero that we may not even think of them when we hear the word. When minority women are found in these heroic roles, they're overshadowed by their white counterparts. Take the Disney World, for example. Mulan risked her life and her family's honor in order to save her father and ended up saving all of China. Tiana spent hours trying to save up for her own restaurant to make her dreams a reality without any man in the picture. And Nani went from job to job just to keep the social services from taking her sister Lilo away. And yet, Anna and Elsa are considered Disney's feminist icons. Even in media and advertising, minority women are underrepresented. Instead, we use white women to represent their culture. For me, growing up personally, I didn't have any relatable role model, both in media and reality, and I spent most of my life attempting to fulfill the expectations of the people around me, who tried to tell me what kind of life and career goals I should have based on my gender and ethnicity. I hated not only being a female, but also a minority. I felt ashamed when I was comparing myself to white women and girls who seemingly had a greater potential to succeed just because they had role models who looked like them. Only now, through my background in psychology and through seeking psychotherapy for some of these negative and self-defeating thoughts, do I understand the whys behind the feelings I felt when I was younger. But that's not good enough. What can we do for young women like me today who are experiencing these same complex feelings? How can we ultimately help them awaken their inner hero? Social, cultural, and political change don't happen overnight, but that shouldn't discourage us from taking the small steps to make a bigger change. Here's how you can help, whether you're a content creator or just an average everyday person. Recognize how young women of color see themselves. They see themselves, the girls that we spoke to see themselves as the heroes of their own narratives. They envision a bright future for themselves, and although they foresee obstacles, they know that they'll eventually overcome them. They're headstrong, and they'll stand for what they believe in. Encourage them, celebrate them, hear their stories, share their stories, and not just the stories that other people made up for them. Help them defy stereotypes and show them that you think they can be big and bold. Make them feel confident and represent their real, true selves. Don't just leave them with an ambiguous ending. Show them that you think they can truly be heroes, not only of their own narratives, but for others too. Our job as part of society is to help these women feel empowered and help awaken their inner hero. And when we young women feel like we can make a change and we have no limitations, that gives us hope. And it makes us even more excited when other people think that we can make a difference too. The young women that we spoke to told us that they feel more positive feelings of encouragement, unity, and competency when they're surrounded by other people like them. Imagine if this support and sense of belonging extended beyond just their peer groups and to the rest of society. Thank you.